There are a couple ways you can create a pivot chart. One way is to create a pivot chart by switching the view on any one of these three objects here to the pivot chart view. For example, like the cell profits query. In the pivot table training video, we double-clicked, opened it up, and then we right-clicked on it, and then we switched it to the pivot table view. Well, there's the pivot chart. When we go to the pivot table view, it's got all the fields that I added there because I saved my work when I was done. And it still has the same filter instead of all the book titles, just for the 101 pizza combinations. Well, you should know that anytime you create a pivot table in the pivot table view, it'll automatically create a pivot chart in the pivot chart view. And any filter that we apply in this view, the pivot table, it'll automatically update and apply the same filter in the pivot chart view. So I could go ahead and say that's it, training's done, because if you want to create a pivot chart, then create a pivot table. For example, when I right click and I go to the pivot chart view, there's the same fields, book titles, sum of the profits, customer name, years, and also the same filter. And it works vice versa. If I create a pivot chart, it'll automatically create the pivot table for me based upon those fields that I used in the pivot chart here. So to create the pivot chart, I'm going to go ahead and do it here in the cell profits query. Now it's already done for me because I created the pivot table, but as you recall in the pivot table training video, if I want to go ahead and start from scratch here, I can just click and drag these fields up and off and remove all of them. So you want to drag them up until you see the red X below your pointer there, and then you can let go and it removes it from the pivot chart. Click and drag up and off over here and up, off over there. Now there's a couple more fields here that I don't see that I know when I right click and go to the pivot table view, they're there. Retail cost, wholesale, click and drag off, click and drag off. Okay, so what we do in one affects the other. I've got nothing here, so if I right click and go to the pivot chart view, there should be nothing here, and there isn't. Now there are some similarities between the pivot chart and pivot table, like for example in the upper left hand corner we have the filter field which affects the other two fields. In the pivot table view it was the row and column headers. Those fields there, for here it's for the category fields and the series fields. The category fields is going to be along the x-axis here, or the horizontal axis, so whatever field we drag and drop here, it'll display it down below here. And then the series field is the grouping, or the series, like for example, if we drag the date here, and we want to group by month or by quarter, you'll be able to see the series of the results over here in the chart. In fact, let me go ahead and get started. To be able to go ahead and build this pivot chart, we need to see the list of our fields here, or the field list. Come up here on the Design tab, to the Show High group, click on the field list, it displays it. If it's already selected and you don't see it, then come over here and actually click on the plot area and it should pull it up. Okay, when it comes to creating your pivot chart, you want to ask yourself the question, what do you want to see? And I usually start by saying, what's the most important detail to me? Is it going to be profits? Is it going to be the book titles? It's actually going to be profit. Everybody cares about that, right? Let's go ahead and click and drag that over into the drop data fields here. Now, it says it there in the pop-up, but it doesn't say it up above. Well, by default, if this is the first time you're creating it and you didn't create the pivot table first and did what we did, removed them all, it just hasn't refreshed here. I mean, it should say up here, drop data field here. It doesn't here because I already tinkered with it. But if I did it from scratch, it would show it. In any case, you can either drop it up here or drop it down below here. Let go. And there we go. We've got the total sum of all the profits that we made. When you hover over it, you can get the exact number of the profit, $19,349.10. Well, I want to go ahead and add the date by coming over here. And what date do I want? The exact date, or do I want it grouped by week or by month? If I want to be able to display it by series, let me go ahead and select it, click and drag it, and drop it onto the series field. Now, it's not displaying it by the series of the quarter or the month, it's doing it by years. So when I hover over it, you can see that it says in that pop-up, it's for the year 2008, so I just get one column. Well, instead of hovering over it every time to remind myself what year it is that we made the profit, let's come up here to the Design tab, to the Show High group, click on Legend, and there we go. It displays the year, or if we had more years, in different colors and the year that it's tied to. In fact, if I right-click on this and go to expand it, I can go from years down to quarters, and it has a color for each quarter there, so I can tell the difference between the quarters, and I can say, oh, quarter 2 in 2008, we made a lot of money. That was great. And you can hover over it to see the profit for that quarter. Now, this is subjective when it comes to building your pivot charts. For me, it could be enough and just say, hey, I want to see what the profits are. If I want to see the profits made by each customer or off of each customer, so maybe I can say, ooh, this customer bought a lot, maybe I ought to offer them a discount. They're one of our best clients. Go ahead and select the customer name, click and drag it down here. Now the category field is going to be the x-axis field. When I drop it, you can see it's along that horizontal line here. So for each client here, it displays their purchases, or the profits that we made off of them for each quarter. Or I could do it by month. Right click on the quarters, select expand. There we go. All the months there here, and then the months, well, tied to each quarter, January, February, March to quarter one, and then so on. In any case, if I don't want to see them by quarters or by months and I want to go back to years, I can right click on the years and go to collapse, and it takes me back to the years. It still displays over here the fields, and that's okay as long as I don't see it over here, because I just want to view it by the year 2008. And so for the whole year 2008, Roadsters was our best client. We made the most sales to them. I could also filter these two fields, which in turn filters the details by, let's do it by book title, by dragging it up here. And you can see right now it still has the same filter applied when we first remove all these fields here. But if I click on the drop down arrow and check all and click OK, there we go. We're back to seeing all the books that have been sold, and not just for the 101 pizza combination and those companies that purchased it in the year 2008. A couple other things is you have these access titles here. You can either use them or lose them. If you don't use them, they'll still be there, but I say lose them if you're not going to use them, and you can do that by selecting it, hitting the delete key. I can go ahead and update the title here by selecting it, and then coming up here on the Design tab, clicking on the Property Sheet, and then going to the Format tab and saying the caption is not just access title, we could call it our clients, and hit Enter. Let me close out. And then if you want to be able to move these fields around, like for example the customer name, I mean it's arbitrary where you move them, because if I click and drag this over here, it's up to me how I want to view my data. So I have to look at the Big News Network, that color coordinated bar there. Well, this one says Roadsters, so I have to, boy, which color's which? That gets a little bit hard, doesn't it? There it is. So that's why it's best to, well, in my opinion, not to group them like that. You may find a reason to do that. But in any case, you can flip those fields back and forth, click and drag the years and put it down here. And you can see the category X-axis is 2008. So for the entire year, here are the customers that they have color coordinated over here in the legend. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please see the description below this video.